Alright everybody, we are on our fourth video already. So we're going to be covering chapter 4.1. And this is Jack Golden, and here we go. Okay, so this is the introductory page, and the first term they discuss is exogenous, which means arising from outside the body. So that could be any drug from LSD to ibuprofen. Neurochemistry, neuroscience concerned with the fundamental chemical composition and the processes of the nervous system. Neuropharmacology is the discovery and study of compounds that selectively affect the functioning of the nervous system. So, synaptic transmission is a complex electrochemical process. Ca2 plus is released when the axon terminal is depolarized. Because of its release, exocytosis occurs and the neurotransmitters are released from their synaptic vesicles. Ionotropic receptors, receptor protein that includes an ion channel that is open when the receptor is bound by an agonist. Metabotropic receptor, no ion channel, uses G protein system that alters the function of the postsynaptic cell. Receptor subtype, functional characteristics that make it different than other receptors for the same neurotransmitter. GPCR stands for a chemical that initiates G protein signaling inside the cell. Ligand binds to the receptor. Okay, some examples of these. Agonists. It's just your run-of-the-mill deal. Goes into the receptor and it causes change. Antagonist binds and does not activate. It's basically a blocker. Inverse agonist, which is less common, reverses the normal function of the receptor. Competitive ligand directly competes with endogenous ligand for the same binding sites on a receptor molecule. Non-competitive ligand alters the response to an indigenous ligand without interacting with the indigenous ligand's recognition site. Amine neurotransmitter based on modifications of a single amino acid. So, an example would be dopamine. Amino acid neurotransmitter is exactly what it says it is. It's a amino acid neurotransmitter. Gas neurotransmitter. Soluble gases that diffuse between neurons to alter ongoing process. So it can be a gas as well. Interesting stuff. Okay, so we got a bunch of vocabulary words for this slide. Co-localization is neurons contain more than one neurotransmitter. Glutamate and aspartate are the most plentiful excitatory neurons in the brain. Exotoxicity, its neuron dies when overstimulated with glutamate. GABA and glycine are inhibitors. And then a reminder from last chapter that Otto, our friend, was the first person to find a neurotransmitter, and that was acetylcholine. Cholinergic neurons are important for learning and memory. CHAT, important in making acetylcholine. ACHE, inactivates acetylcholine in the nervous system. MAO breaks down monoamine transmitters and catecholamines, neurotransmitters that are monoamines. Andolamines, neurotransmitters are monoamines. Dopamine found in the midbrain, basal ganglia, mesostriatal pathway. It's where the dopamine goes from the midbrain to the basal ganglia to the substantia nigra to the striatum. mesolimbocortical pathway, dopamine pathway from the midbrain to the limbic system in cortex. DTA, part of the midbrain that projects dopamine fibers to the nucleus accumbens. Norepinephrine, opioid peptides, and serotonin. Okay, so first for the norepinephrine. Two main clusters in the brainstem release this neurotransmitter: the locus coeruleus and the lateral tegmental area. Okay, now for the opioid peptides. Endogenous substance that resembles morphine and things like that. Pituitary hormones include oxytocin and vasopressin. Serotonin is also called 5-HT. Raphe nuclei has a high concentration of serotonin. Only 200,000 neurons are serotoninogenic in the human brain. It controls sleep, mood, and sexual behavior. And that is all. And last but not least, we have our gas neurotransmitters. Nitric oxide is an example. Doesn't react or interact with membrane-bound receptors, diffuses into and stimulates target cell. And then you have your retrograde transmitter, which goes the opposite way from the postsynaptic to the presynaptic.